Welcome, time travelers. SolaTales here, and tonight's adventure takes us straight into the gentle twilight of an Anglo-Saxon village, where ancient hives hum their evening songs. So, dim the lights, sit back, and relax. The year is 847, and the soft light of an English summer evening filters through the ancient oak trees that have watched over this peaceful valley for countless generations. In a small village, nestled between rolling hills covered in wildflowers and golden barley, the day's work is drawing to its gentle close. Smoke rises lazily from thatched roofs where families gather for their evening meal, and the warm air carries the mingled scents of baking bread, flowering herbs, and the sweet promise of approaching night. It is in this tranquil hour that we meet Aelred, a man whose weathered hands tell the story of decades spent in partnership with the humming creatures that have blessed his life with their golden gift. His hair, now silver as moonlight on water, catches the last rays of the setting sun as he moves with the unhurried grace that comes only to those who have learned to measure time, not in moments, but in seasons. The lines around his eyes speak of countless hours spent watching and listening, of years devoted to understanding the ancient language of the bees. Aelred's cottage sits at the edge of the village, where the tended gardens give way to wild meadows that stretch toward distant woods. Here, where cultivated herbs blend seamlessly with nature's own abundance, he has tended his hives for more years than the youngest villagers have been alive. The cottage itself seems to breathe with the rhythm of the countryside, its oak beams darkened by age, and its thatch roof home to sparrows who nest each spring in the same familiar eaves. As evening approaches, Aelred follows the ritual that has shaped his days for decades. From a wooden peg beside his door, he takes down a woven basket, its reed walls worn smooth by countless evening journeys. Into this basket, he places the simple tools of his ancient craft: a clay pot filled with dried herbs that will provide gentle smoke, a piece of flint wrapped in soft leather, and a small bronze knife that belonged to his grandfather's grandfather, its blade worn thin by generations of careful use. The evening air is warm against his skin as he steps from his threshold onto the path that winds through his herb garden. Here, beneath his daily care, grow the plants that have served both his family and his bees through the turning of many seasons. Rows of rosemary release their piney fragrance at his passing, while lavender stalks heavy with purple blooms bow gently in the soft breeze. While time creeps between the stones of the pathway, releasing its sweet scent with each footfall, and chamomile flowers close their white petals as shadows begin to lengthen. The path leads him past beds of fennel with their feathery leaves stirring in the evening air, past mint that grows thick and green beside a small spring that bubbles up from underground stones worn smooth by centuries of flowing water. Each plant in this garden serves a purpose, some for healing the ailments of his neighbors, others for flavoring the simple foods of country life, and many for providing nectar to the bees that are more than livestock to him. They are partners in an ancient dance of mutual care and respect. As he walks this familiar route, Aelred's sandaled feet make soft whispers against the packed earth. The leather, worn thin by years of these evening rounds, allows him to feel each stone, each variation in the path that connects his cottage to the sacred grove, where his hives wait in their orderly rows. This path has been walked by his father and his father's father, each generation adding their footsteps to the gentle depression in the earth, each keeper of bees following the same ritual of evening care that stretches back through the mists of time. The basket on his arm contains more than tools. It holds the wisdom of generations. The clay pot, shaped by the village potter's hands, using clay from the riverbank where children play and women wash their families' clothes, will hold the smoldering herbs that calm the bees and speak to them in the ancient language of smoke and scent. The herbs themselves, dried lavender and rosemary, meadowsweet and wild thyme, were gathered at the perfect moments when the moon was right and the morning dew still blessed their leaves with silver drops that caught the early light like tiny mirrors. As Aelred moves through his garden, the plants seem to whisper their evening songs. Bees from his own hives work among the late blooming flowers, their legs heavy with pollen that glows golden in the fading light. They move with the same unhurried purpose that guides their keeper, gathering the last nectar of the day before returning to the safety and warmth of their straw homes. Some hover near his shoulders as he passes, recognizing his scent, his gentle movements, the peaceful energy that has made him trusted among their kind. The garden gradually gives way to wilder growth, where nature has been guided but not conquered. Here, elder bushes heavy with dark berries provide shelter for small birds, and wild roses climb through hawthorn hedges that bloom white as fresh snow in early summer. The transition from tended garden to natural meadow happens so gradually that it seems less like a boundary than a gentle conversation between human care and nature's wisdom. A blending that speaks to the harmony Aelred has spent his lifetime learning to cultivate. Now the path curves gently to the right, following the natural contours of the land, and ahead, in a clearing blessed by centuries of morning sun and protected from harsh winds by the embrace of ancient trees, stand the hives. 23 skeps in all, each one woven from golden straw by hands that learned the craft from masters who learned it from their own teachers, stretching back through generations to the first keeper who discovered that bees would make their homes in vessels shaped by human hands, if those hands worked with respect and patience. The skeps sit on wooden platforms, raised just enough above the ground to keep them dry when autumn rains come and spring floods threaten the low places. Each platform was cut from oak trees that grew in these very woods, their wood aged and seasoned until it became as hard as stone and as enduring as the love between keeper and bees. The platforms bear the marks of weather and years, their surfaces worn smooth by countless seasons of sun and rain, wind and snow. Yet they remain strong, reliable foundations for the precious communities they support. As Aelred approaches the first hive, the sound that has drawn him here each evening for decades grows clearer and more distinct. It is the humming, not the busy, urgent buzzing of daytime work, but the deeper, more musical sound of a community settling into the peace of approaching night. This is the sound that speaks to something ancient in his soul, a vibration that seems to connect him to rhythms older than human memory, to the pulse of the earth itself and the turning of seasons that governs all life beneath the vast dome of sky. He sets his basket down on a wooden stool that sits beside the nearest hive, its surface polished by years of use, and begins the ritual that marks the transition from day to night. From the clay pot, he takes a pinch of the dried herbs, crushing them between his fingers to release their oils and essences. The scent rises immediately, lavender's calming sweetness, Rosemary's sharp clarity, the green freshness of thyme that speaks of summer meadows where wildflowers nod in gentle breezes. With practiced movements that flow like water, Aelred strikes flint against steel, sending small sparks dancing through the gathering dusk. One spark catches in the dried tinder, glowing like a tiny star, and he breathes gently upon it until a small flame blooms. Into this flame, he feeds the crushed herbs, and smoke begins to rise, pale and fragrant, carrying with it the peaceful intentions of his evening ritual. The first hive stands before him like a golden dome, its straw walls woven in patterns that catch and hold the last light of day. As he approaches with the smoking herbs held carefully in his cupped palms, the humming from within seems to deepen and grow more welcoming. This is the language between keeper and kept, a communication that needs no words but speaks directly from one living being to another, from the solitary human to the vast community that lives and breathes as one within the woven walls. Aelred kneels beside the first skep, his knees finding the soft earth that has been worn smooth by countless such moments. The smoke from the herbs drifts around the hive's entrance, and he can sense, rather than see, the gentle response from within. The bees know him, know his scent and his presence, know the careful respect with which he approaches their domain. They have learned, as he has learned, that this evening ritual brings peace to both keeper and kept, a mutual recognition of the bond that has sustained them through the changing seasons. Placing his ear against the warm straw of the skep, Aelred listens with the attention that comes from years of practice. Each hive has its own voice, its own particular song that tells him of the health and happiness of the community within. This first hive hums with deep contentment, the sound of thousands of wings at rest, of bodies clustered together in the ancient pattern that has kept their kind alive through countless generations. It is the sound of home, of safety, of the trust that allows wild creatures to share their lives with human hands. The straw beneath his ear is smooth and warm, heated by the sun that has blessed it all day, and by the gentle warmth of the living community within. Through the woven walls, he can sense the orderly world of the hive, the hexagonal cells where golden honey waits in perfect rows, the chambers where the next generation grows in sacred darkness, the central space where the queen, mother, and heart of the community continues the ancient work that keeps her people alive and thriving. As he listens, the sound seems to sink deeper into his consciousness, connecting him to memories of his father, teaching him this same ritual, of his own younger hands, learning to weave straw into the domed shapes that would become homes for these miraculous creatures. He remembers the first time he placed his ear against a hive and heard the deep contentment that told him the bees had accepted their human-made dwelling, had chosen to trust him with their precious lives and the sweet treasure they create from flower nectar and their own mysterious alchemy. Moving to the second hive, Aelred carries the smoking herbs with him, their fragrance creating a gentle cloud that drifts on the evening air. This skep sits slightly apart from the others, home to a community that came to him as a swarm 3 summers ago, following the ancient instinct that sends part of a thriving hive in search of new territory. He remembers the day they arrived, a dark cloud against the blue sky, circling and settling finally on a low branch of the apple tree that grows beside his cottage. The sound from this hive is slightly different, younger somehow, with the energy of a community still establishing its patterns and rhythms. Yet there is the same deep contentment, the same sense of home and security that tells him all is well within the woven walls. As he kneels and places his ear against the straw, he feels again the wonder that has never left him in all his years of beekeeping, the miracle of these small creatures who transform flower nectar into liquid gold, who dance to tell each other of distant meadows rich with blooms, who work together with a harmony that humans might learn from if they had the wisdom to listen. The smoke continues to rise from his cupped hands, and the herbs release their calm essences into the growing dusk. Somewhere in the distance, a nightingale begins its evening song, liquid notes that rise and fall like silver water flowing over smooth stones. The sound blends with the humming from the hives, creating a symphony of evening that speaks to the peace that comes when day surrenders to night. When work gives way to rest, when the busy activities of daylight hours fade into the deeper rhythms that sustain all life. Hive by hive, Aelred continues his evening round, and with each skep he visits, his movements become slower, more flowing, like a dance performed in honor of ancient partnerships and enduring trust. The light continues to fade around him, and the golden glow that blessed the straw walls of the hives begins to give way to the softer silver of approaching moonlight. Yet the warmth remains, radiating from each dome-shaped home, warming his hands as he touches the smooth straw, warming his heart as he listens to the contented songs from within. At the seventh hive, he pauses longer than usual, for this is the home of his oldest community, the descendants of bees that came to this clearing when he was still a young man learning his craft from his father's patient teaching. The straw of this skep has weathered to a deep gold that seems to glow with inner light, and the humming from within has the deep, rich quality that speaks of wisdom accumulated through many seasons, many flowerings, many cycles of the ancient work that transforms nectar into honey, pollen into food, and the simple gifts of flowers into the complex miracle of the hive. As he listens to this most familiar of songs, Aelred's mind drifts to memories of springs when apple blossoms covered the valley like snow, of summers when the meadows bloomed in waves of color that drew his bees like living magnets, of autumns when the hives grew heavy with the golden treasure that would sustain both bees and village through the sleeping months of winter. Each season has brought its gifts and challenges, its lessons and rewards. And through them all, the partnership between keeper and bees has grown stronger, deeper, more rooted in mutual trust and respect. The smoke from his herbs has long since dissipated into the evening air, but the peace it brought remains, settling over the clearing like a gentle blessing. The humming from the hives seems to grow softer as the light fades, yet somehow more present, more musical, as if the approaching night brings out harmonies that daylight obscures. It is the sound of communities settling into rest, of work completed and rest earned, of the eternal cycle that governs all living things beneath the vast canopy of stars that are beginning to appear, one by one, in the deepening sky. As Aelred moves among the remaining hives, his shadow grows longer and softer in the fading light, and his movements take on the flowing quality of water moving downhill, seeking always the path of least resistance, the way of greatest harmony. Each hive receives the same careful attention, the same respectful approach, the same gentle listening that has marked his evening ritual for more years than he can easily count. and each hive responds with its own variation of the ancient song, its own contribution to the symphony of contentment that rises from the clearing like invisible incense, blessing the air and all who breathe it. The 16th hive sits beneath the spreading branches of an oak tree so old that its trunk bears the scars of storms from centuries past, its bark furrowed deep as a river valley, its roots extending far beyond the reach of human sight, into the secret places where earth holds the memories of all who have walked upon its surface. This tree was here when Aelred's great-grandfather first brought bees to this clearing, and it will remain when generations yet unborn continue the ancient ritual of evening listening, of partnership between human and bee, of the patient tending that keeps both communities, human and insect, thriving in harmony. In the shadow of this ancient oak, the hive seems to hum with particular richness, as if the tree itself adds its voice to the evening song, as if the deep roots and reaching branches somehow amplify and enhance the music that rises from the woven straw dome. Aelred places both hands on the surface of the skep, feeling through his palms the gentle vibration that speaks of life contained and cherished, of communities within communities, of the intricate connections that bind all living things in webs of mutual dependence and care. The last light of day fades from the western sky as he completes his round of the remaining hives, each one adding its voice to the growing chorus of evening contentment. 23 communities, 23 songs, 23 variations on the ancient theme of home and safety. Work completed and rest approaching. The air grows cooler now, carrying the scent of dew beginning to form on grass and leaves, of flowers closing their petals for the night, of the earth itself settling into the peace that comes when the sun's work is done, and the gentler light of moon and stars begins to bless the sleeping world. Aelred gathers his simple tools, placing them back in the woven basket with the same careful attention he brought to their use. The clay pot, now cool to the touch, still carries the faint fragrance of the herbs that helped create the evening's peace. The bronze knife rests beside it, its ancient metal reflecting the first glimmer of starlight, its blade worn smooth by generations of use in service to the partnership between human hands and the wild creatures who have chosen to trust those hands with their most precious possessions, their lives, their homes, their sweet golden treasure. As he lifts the basket and prepares to retrace his steps along the familiar path, Aelred pauses for one final moment of listening. The humming from the hives has settled now into the deep, sustained note of communities at rest, a sound so low and musical that it seems to rise not just from the woven skeps, but from the earth itself, from the roots of the ancient oak, from the very air that carries the scent of night-blooming flowers and the promise of dew-blessed dawn. The walk back through the herb garden takes on a dreamlike quality in the gathering darkness, with starlight beginning to touch the pale flowers that open only at night to release their fragrances into the cool air. Night-blooming jasmine sends its sweet perfume drifting on the gentle breeze, and moonflowers begin to unfold their white petals like small faces turned towards the rising moon. The path beneath his feet seems to glow faintly in the starlight, worn smooth by countless journeys between cottage and hives, between the human world of hearth and home and the wild world where his partners in sweetness create their golden miracle from flower nectar and ancient wisdom. As he approaches his cottage, where warm light glows softly through windows made of horn scraped thin as paper and set in frames of oak. Aelred feels the deep satisfaction that comes from another day's partnership completed, another evening's ritual observed, another link added to the chain of care that stretches back through generations and forward into a future where, God willing, other hands will learn to listen to the evening songs of hives. Other hearts will discover the peace that comes from tending rather than taking, from serving rather than commanding, from finding one's place in the great web of life that connects all creatures under the vast dome of sky. The basket finds its place on the wooden peg beside his door, and the tools within it settle into rest as their keeper settles into the peace of evening completed. Through the thin walls of his cottage, if he listens carefully, Aelred can still hear the faint humming of his bees, a sound so much a part of his world that it has become like the beating of his own heart, so constant and reassuring that he only notices it when he stops to listen with the full attention of love. And as the moon rises over the valley, casting silver light on thatched roofs and herb gardens, on the ancient oak that shelters the oldest hive, and the spring that feeds the mint beds with its constant gentle song, the evening ritual finds its completion in the larger ritual of night following day, of rest following work, of the eternal turning that brings seasons and years, generations and centuries, all flowing like a great river that carries all life toward its mysterious and blessed destination. The hives settle into their deepest song now, a humming so low and peaceful that it might be the earth itself breathing, the very heartbeat of creation expressed in the voices of countless small creatures who have learned to transform the gifts of flowers into liquid gold, to create from the scattered sweetness of meadows and gardens a treasure that sustains and nourishes, that speaks of partnership and patience, of the rewards that come to those who learn to work with, rather than against, the natural rhythms that govern all life beneath the eternal stars. And in his cottage, as Aelred prepares for sleep, he carries with him the memory of the evening songs, the feeling of warm straw beneath his hands, the scent of herbs offering their peaceful blessing to the partnership between human and bee that has sustained both communities through countless seasons of change and growth, challenge and reward. Tomorrow will bring another day of tending and listening, another evening of ritual and song, another link in the chain of care that connects him to his fathers and their fathers, and to the generations yet to come who will learn, as he has learned, to find their place in the ancient harmony that sings eternally in the evening air above the hives, where wild creatures have chosen to make their homes in vessels shaped by human hands, guided by reverence, patience, and love. The last sound he hears before sleep takes him is the gentle humming that drifts on the night air, blessing his dreams with visions of golden meadows where flowers nod in gentle breezes and his bees dance their eternal dance of partnership with the earth, the sky, and the faithful human hands that serve them with devotion that grows deeper and more peaceful with each passing season, each evening song, each moment of listening to the ancient wisdom that speaks in the humming voices of the hive, telling of contentment, of home, of the sweet treasures that come to those who learn to tend rather than take, to listen rather than command, to find in service to others the greatest gift of all, the peace that comes when one's life becomes a song in harmony with the great chorus of creation that rises eternally from every flower, every tree, every creature that finds its place in the vast and gentle symphony of existence. And all was peaceful in the evening garden, under the watchful stars, in the soft embrace of twilight that blessed the valley and all who dwelt within it with the promise of rest, renewal, and the eternal returning of light that marks each day as a gift, each evening as a blessing, each night as a preparation for the dawn that will surely come, bringing with it another day of partnership, another evening of songs, another chapter in the story that connects all living beings in the endless dance of mutual care and the sweet, golden rewards of learning to live in harmony with the ancient rhythms that govern earth and sky, season and year, the beating of hearts and the humming of hives, all joined in the eternal song that rises like incense from the peaceful places where humans and their wild partners create together the treasures that sustain and nourish, that sweeten and bless, that remind all who taste them of the golden possibilities that await those who learn to listen with love to the evening songs that drift on the night air from the hives, where ancient partnerships flourish in the gentle light of moon and stars, world without end, in the soft embrace of twilight that holds all creation in its peaceful arms, until morning light returns once more to bless another day of the eternal dance between human hands and the wild creatures who trust those hands to tend and serve and listen to the songs that speak of contentment, of home, of the sweet treasures that flow from the partnership between earth and sky, flower and bee, keeper and kept, all joined in the music that rises eternally from the hearts of those who have learned to find, in service to others, the greatest joy of all.